The following is a list of topics covered in this video. How to use menus. How to enter formulas into cells. How to save worksheets on the disk. How to close a worksheet and how to print one. How to get help on the screen and how to exit the program. How to select a range of cells and clear it. How to undo something we've done. How to make a column wider and how to insert one. How to move a block of cells. How to make a copy of a block of cells and place it somewhere else in the worksheet. We'll explain how formulas get information from cells and how to use functions. How to view more than one worksheet at a time and how to link two worksheets together. How to use your data to create many different types of charts or graphs with just the push of a single button. How to perform a complex operation with just two keys. And how to create a database. When Microsoft Excel opens, you'll notice it has its own menu bar. These menus contain many of the operations that can be performed in Excel, and we'll talk more about these in a moment. Below the menu bar is the toolbar. The buttons in the toolbar are shortcuts for many of the operations in menus. This one here is used to print. This button is used to save a worksheet on the disk. This one is used to open a worksheet from the disk. And this one is used to create a new worksheet. Let's try this one. We click on it once, and a new worksheet has been created. It's in front of the previous worksheet. Now let's just click on the worksheet that's behind. Click anywhere in the area that you can see. And it comes back to the front. Next we have the formula bar. Formula bar is used to enter information into the cells of the worksheet. The area here below contains the actual cells of the worksheet. We're moving this indicator around using the mouse, of course. Notice that when we move the indicator to different areas of the screen, the appearance of the indicator changes. Sometimes it's an arrow, sometimes a vertical bar, and sometimes a plus sign. This plus sign is used to select the cells of the worksheet. Each cell in the worksheet has its own individual address. Here we've selected cell A1. The columns in the worksheet are denoted by letters, and the rows by numbers. So each cell has a unique address. This is A1, this is B2, and this is cell C2. We're selecting these cells using the mouse by clicking once with the left mouse button when the mouse indicator is positioned over that cell. A cell must be selected in this way before we can enter information into it. We enter information into the cell using the formula bar. Click in the formula bar area to activate it. The flashing cursor indicates that the formula bar is ready to receive information from the keyboard. We'll type in a column name here. Notice that the information also appears in the cell. All we did was to click on a cell, then click in the formula bar. We typed in the text. Now when we hit enter on the keyboard, the information is entered into the cell. Now we're ready to explain the use of menus and how to perform operations in the menus, and also how to use dialog boxes. The various commands in Excel are conveniently arranged in menus, and we can open the menus by clicking once with the left mouse button, and click again to close it. This works for any of the menus. As you're looking through the menus, you may notice that some of the commands are followed by 3 dots, and some of them are not. Here are 3 that are not followed by dots. And here's one that is. Commands that don't have the dots will be executed immediately when you click on them. Commands followed by 3 dots will ask for more information. Commands in the Format menu, for instance, affect the way text or numbers appear in the cells. If we choose Alignment, Excel will ask us some questions about how we want it to be aligned. It does this using a dialog box. The dialog box opens in the lower part of the screen. Dialog boxes are very common in Windows programs. Let's take a closer look at this dialog box. There are many different choices for the alignment of the text. Using the mouse, we can select these choices by clicking in the appropriate area. These particular buttons work like radio buttons. When you push one, the other one is deselected. Only one of these may be on at a time. And these are the same. In the lower left-hand corner, we have a checkbox. Clicking in this box turns this feature on. Again, we're clicking with the left mouse button once. Clicking and releasing. We can click again to turn this feature off. And here in the orientation box, we can choose the orientation of our text. Most dialog boxes have at least these 3 command buttons: OK, Cancel, and Help. Selecting OK accepts the changes that we performed in the box. Selecting Cancel will disregard the changes, and Help will open a help screen where we can find information. We'll talk more about the help feature in a moment. Let's center our text and click OK. Now looking back at the cell, we see the text has been centered in the cell. One more thing about menus. When you open a menu, you can also close it by clicking anywhere outside the menu. We're actually looking at a large worksheet through a small window. We can move this window using the scroll bars at the bottom and the right side of the window. We move the window by pressing the arrow buttons at the ends of the scroll bars. Pressing the down arrow moves the window down, and the up arrow moves the window back up. Likewise with the left and right arrows. We can also move to a specific cell in the worksheet using a command called GoTo. We find this in the Formula menu. Click on Formula using the left mouse button. Down through the menu, we find GoTo. GoTo will allow us to find a specific cell. You may have noticed that some of the commands in the menus have a keyboard equivalent following them. We could also press F5 on the keyboard to perform the same operation. Click on GoTo, and a dialog box opens on the screen. Remember that any command followed by 3 dots will always have a dialog box open up to ask for more information. Now, using the keyboard, we can type in the cell address. Let's find D55. Once it's typed in, we click OK. And now in the lower right-hand corner, we can see the program has located Z55. In the upper left-hand corner, we can also see next to the formula bar, Z55 indicates the address of the currently selected cell. There's an easy way to return to the top of the worksheet. Use Control and Home. Hold down Control and press Home. We've returned to A1 on the worksheet. We can also use other keys on the keyboard to move around in the worksheet. The arrow keys move in the direction the arrow points. And the page up and page down also will move up and down in the worksheet a page at a time. Notice the row numbers changing on the left side of the screen. In Excel version 5, worksheets are referred to as books or workbooks. And each workbook may contain many worksheets. See at the bottom we have sheet 1, sheet 2, and so on. To bring any one of these to the front, we just click on that particular tab. This creates, in effect, a three-dimensional worksheet. Next, we'll show how to enter formulas into a cell. The ability to do mathematical calculations is really what makes a spreadsheet a spreadsheet. First, we'll show how to enter a simple formula into the cell. We select a cell where we want the formula to be. Then we click in the formula bar to activate it. This is where we type in the formula. Excel knows the difference between a formula and normal text because a formula starts with an equal sign. We begin typing with the equal sign. Let's type C2 plus C3 plus C4. This is the formula. This formula tells the computer to add the contents of cell C2, C3, and C4 and place the result in this cell. Now that we've typed in the formula, we go back to the keyboard and hit enter. And now the formula has been placed in the cell. The result of the formula, the addition of the three cells, has been placed in that cell. As long as the formula is in the cell, it will always contain the sum of these three cells. You may also use the number pad to enter formulas, numbers, and the operators. The operators are plus, minus, the asterisk, which means multiply, and the slash, which means divide. And we can use just these simple keys to enter even the most complicated formulas. But that might be a little cumbersome, so Excel has provided a list of pre-programmed formulas called functions. And we'll talk about those a little bit later. Next, we'll demonstrate how to save a worksheet to the disk. You should save things fairly often to avoid losing information. To save, we go to the File menu and choose Save. The Save As dialog box opens. It always opens whenever we save a document for the first time. This is so we can give our worksheet a name. Because the computer's suggested name is highlighted in the File Name box, we can just begin typing from the keyboard to replace it. Let's call it Revenue. Then when we click OK, the worksheet will be saved in the directory that appears in this window. The title of the directory is listed here. If you want to save in a different directory, double-click on this directory to get a list of all the other directories that are contained in it. And you may scroll through using the scroll bar. Let's go back to the original directory. Double-click on it to select it. Now we're going to save our worksheet into this directory. We click OK to save it. Once you've given the worksheet a name and saved it on the disk, you can save any further changes to the worksheet by going back to the File menu and selecting Save. This time, you won't get a dialog box, but the new version will be saved in place of the old one. When you save a worksheet in Excel, the program automatically adds this three-letter extension, XLS. This identifies the worksheet as an Excel worksheet. Next, we'll show how to close a worksheet and how to open a new one from the disk. When we finish working on our worksheet and we're ready to close, we go to the File menu and click on Close. If we've made changes in our worksheet since we last saved it, we'll get a dialog box that asks if we want to save it. We would just choose Yes to save it. Then we can open another worksheet by going to the File menu and clicking on Open. A new dialog box appears on the screen. In the box, we can type in the name of the file we want, or we can scroll through a list of worksheets that are already on the disk. These are the worksheets contained in this directory. Here's the worksheet called Revenue. We click, and then the name appears in the file name box. We click OK to open that worksheet on the screen. It's important to remember that when you open something from the disk, you merely have brought a copy to the screen. You haven't actually removed it from the disk. Next, we'll show how to print our worksheet. When you're ready to print out the worksheet, you go to the File menu and click on File, and click on Print. The Print dialog box opens. And we have a few choices. We can print all of the pages, or we can select certain pages. We can choose the print quality and the number of copies, and a few other choices. Let's click OK. And in a few minutes, we have the printout from our laser printer. Remember earlier, we saw a help button in the dialog box. We actually can get help anytime we need it. Across the menu bar to the right is the Help menu. We click to open the menu and click on Content. The Help window opens on the screen. And there's quite a list of topics that we can choose from. This is like looking things up in the manual, except it's right here on the screen for you. If we want to know more about charts, for instance, we click on the word Charts. Now a new screen has opened with more choices, and it's further subdivided. Let's select Creating a Chart. Now we have a list of steps to follow to create a chart. Next, we'll show how to edit the data in the worksheet and how to save the changes. First, we'll make a few changes in this worksheet. Let's click on the word Service. It appears here in the formula bar. We can put the cursor there and add an S. Now the change has been made in the cell. We can edit numbers also. Let's click here, and the formula appears in the formula bar. Remember that we put the formula in, and that's how this number was calculated. Let's say we want to take C4 out of the total. So we click and backspace with the keyboard to remove it. When we hit Enter now, a new total appears in the cell. Now we're just adding the top two numbers. There is also a keyboard method for doing the same thing. Using the arrow key, we'll move to the next cell to the right. Then press F2. This automatically activates the formula bar. And we can make the same change we made before by backspacing on the keyboard. Now that we've made some changes, let's save a new copy of the worksheet with a different name. Let's choose Save As from the File menu. The Save As dialog box opens. In the File Name box, we'll click the cursor to follow the word Revenue, and we'll type a 2. We'll call this Revenue 2. Then we click OK to save it on the disk. Now we'll show how to exit from Microsoft Excel. To exit the program or to quit, we click on File. Then down at the bottom of the menu, we click on the word Exit. The program stops running, and we return to the Windows screen. Now we'll see how to select a range of cells and how to clear them. Position the mouse pointer in the upper left-hand corner of the range of cells you'd like to select. Click and hold the left mouse button down and move the mouse to highlight the entire range of cells. This is called clicking and dragging the mouse. Clicking somewhere outside the range will deselect it. We can select an entire column by clicking on the letter at the top of the column. Or we can select an entire row by clicking on the number to the left of the row. Clicking in this corner box selects the entire worksheet. Clicking somewhere else then deselects it. We can clear part of the worksheet by first selecting the range or the area that we'd like to clear. We go to the Edit menu and choose Clear. The Clear dialog box opens. It gives us some choices for what we'd like to clear. We can clear everything, clear just the formatting of the cell, or we can clear just the formulas, which includes also the text, or clear the notes. Let's clear all and click OK. That part of the worksheet has been erased. Let's show how to clear the entire worksheet of everything except the formatting. The formatting includes how the text and formulas appear in the cell, the centering, and so forth. If we'd like to save the formatting but clear all of the formulas and text, move to the upper left-hand corner, click on this box which selects the entire worksheet. Go to the Edit menu and choose Clear. Then in the Clear dialog box, choose Formulas. This will clear the formulas and the text. If we realize we've made a mistake, you can always recover from the last action that you took. The first choice in the Edit menu is Undo. In this case, it's Undo Clear because that was the last operation performed. If we click that, it goes back to the way it was before. Now when we select it again, it says Redo Clear. It will let us redo that clear operation. This toggles back and forth. Now we'll show how to change the width of a column. Here we have some text that's been typed into the cell, but it's too wide. What we'd like to do is make the column wider so that it fits. Move to the top, the letter area. The cursor changes to this special indicator. If we click right there with the mouse and drag to the right, holding down the mouse button, and then release it, the column is made wider. There's another way to change the column width. Let's undo that one and go back to the way it was. Now, if we click on the A to select the entire column, then go to the Format menu, we can choose Column Width from the Format menu. Then we get a dialog box. In this box, there's a button called Best Fit. This lets the computer decide, based on the text that's in the column, how wide it should be. Click Best Fit. The computer has automatically resized the column width to fit the text. We can change all of the column widths at once by selecting a row, going to the Format menu, and choose Column Width. In the dialog box, you'll notice that the standard width is selected, which is 8.43 units. We'd like to change it to something else. Since this is already selected, we can type on the keyboard the new value. We typed 4. Now the columns are all 4 units wide, but they're a little bit too narrow. Some of the numbers are too long to fit in the column. Excel has replaced the numbers with these number signs to show there's a number there, but it's too wide to fit to display on the screen. Here we have a formula, and the answer can't display because there's not enough room, but the formula is still in the cell. Let's go back and make our columns a little wider. Select that row again, choose Format and Column Width. In a dialog box, 4 is already selected, so we can type in a different number from the keyboard. Let's choose 7. We type 7, it replaces the 4, and when we hit Enter on the keyboard, it's the same as choosing OK. Now the change has been made, and the columns are wider. We can change just a range of column width. Let's just choose these 2 cells, which is the same as selecting those 2 columns. Back to column width, and let's type in a different number. Let's use 10 for this one. We'll click OK, and just those 2 columns are wider. Now we'll show how to insert a column to the left of a selected column. And the other columns all move to the right. And we'll also show how to delete it. To insert a column to the left of column C, we select C by clicking on the letter. We go to the Edit menu and choose Insert. A new column has automatically been inserted to the left of C. Now it's the new column C. Let's make a new column title, April. We can delete a column in the same way. Select the column by clicking on the letter, back to the Edit menu, and choose Delete. The column is deleted, and everything from the right moves back over to the left. Now we'll show how to use cut and paste to move a block of cells from one area to another in the worksheet. In this case, we've inserted a new column, column B here. We'd like to move some information from another column into this column without having to retype it. We'll use the cut and paste commands. Select column C, click on Edit, and then we'll choose Cut. There's also a keyboard equivalent for this, Control plus X. Copy has one as well. Copy is similar to Cut, but it leaves the copy behind where it was. Select Cut by clicking on the command. It has put a moving border around this column. This means that the information has been copied to a special area of memory called the clipboard. This is used for cutting and pasting. Now we select B, which is the destination for our information. Then we click Paste in the Edit menu. The information has been cut from C and pasted in B. You might remember a minute ago, we saw some keyboard equivalents in the menus. We can do cutting, copying, and pasting using these keyboard equivalents. We can use Control plus X to cut, Control plus C to copy, holding down Control and pressing the appropriate letter. Control plus C for copy, Control plus V for paste. Cut, copy, paste. Another way of cutting and pasting is called drag and drop. Select something with the mouse, then move the mouse just until it becomes an arrow on the edge. Then click and hold it and drag down, and then release the mouse button. It's been automatically cut and pasted to the new location. Now we'll show how to insert a new row. Everything else moves down. Inserting and deleting rows is similar to inserting and deleting columns. Select a row by clicking on the number to the left. Click on Edit. Click Insert. A new row has been placed above, and everything else has moved down. To delete it, make sure it's selected, go back to the Edit menu, and choose Delete. The row has been removed, and everything else has moved back up. Let's put it back in for a minute to show how to move a row from one place to another. Select this row, number 2, back to the Edit menu, and cut. Put the moving border around the row. This means that the information is on the clipboard in memory. Then we choose row 1, click on Edit, and click Paste. We could use the keyboard equivalent as well. Now the information was cut from 2 and pasted in 1. Microsoft Excel version 5 includes a new menu called Insert. This menu includes commands for inserting rows, columns, and other items. To insert a column, select the column, click Insert, and then click on Columns. One column is automatically inserted. The same is true for rows. Click on a number, click on Insert, and then click Rows. And one row is inserted automatically. Now we'll show how to use copy and paste to make a copy of one or more cells and paste it in a new location on the worksheet, leaving the original in its place. Copying and pasting is very similar to cutting and pasting. Let's select just this cell and copy. Choose a different cell and choose Paste. This information has been copied and pasted to the new location. We can copy an item from one cell also to a range of cells. Choose Copy to copy the information. Now let's choose a range of cells and then choose Paste. This word has been copied or pasted into all of these cells. We can copy a range of cells as well. Let's start here. Click and drag with the mouse and select this block of cells. Then choose Copy from the Edit menu. Now, we'll select a destination area of the same size and choose Paste. This information has been copied and pasted in the lower area. When you cut or copy something to the clipboard, it stays on the clipboard even though you close a worksheet. This allows us to copy something from one worksheet to another. To demonstrate this, let's select this block of cells. Now we'll go to the Edit menu and choose Copy. This area has been copied to the clipboard. Now let's go to the File menu and open another worksheet. We can have more than one worksheet open at a time. Let's find a different worksheet to copy the information to. Let's choose this worksheet called Copy. A shortcut for doing this is double-clicking. Double-clicking on it will open it, clicking twice rapidly. A new worksheet has opened. Let's select this block where we want the information to be pasted. Or you can just select the upper left-hand corner of where you want the area, where you want the information to be pasted. Now we choose paste, and the information that we copied from the other worksheet into the clipboard now has been pasted into this worksheet. Next, we'll talk about relative and fixed addressing. This refers to the way that formulas relate to or get information from other cells. With relative addressing, formulas refer to cells that are located a certain distance from the formula cell. With fixed addressing, the formula refers to cells, specific cells in the worksheet. When we copied this block of cells a minute ago, we also copied the formulas in the cells. You copy a cell that has a formula. Remember, this one was adding C3 and C4. We've copied this range of cells down below. In the process, we've also copied the formulas in these two cells. But when we click on the new location, the formula is different now. This one now, this originally said C3 and C4, but now this one is adding C8 and C9. Formulas that are entered this way with the letter and the number when they're copied will contain the relative address in relationship to the new cell location. This one adds the cells that are a certain distance from it, and this one is adding the cells that are the same distance in relationship or relative to this cell. The same is true here. This one is now adding D8 and D9. This allows the cell to give you the same result, even though it's been copied to a new location in the worksheet. We can illustrate this another way. Let's make a copy of this cell. In the Edit menu, choose Copy, and we'll paste it to this location. Choose Paste. Notice, this one said D3 plus D4, and now this one says E3 plus E4. And of course, the numbers are different, because this one is now adding E3 and E4 instead of D3 and D4. It adds the two cells that have the same relationship as these two cells had to this cell. We can show this relative addressing in another way by selecting this cell and typing in a different number. Let's backspace and type in a new number, 2900. After we hit enter on the keyboard, this number has changed. This cell doesn't actually contain a number, of course. It contains a formula, which is D8 plus D9. You may have an occasion to refer to a specific cell in a formula. For example, in this cell, we have a formula that figures sales tax. Take the value of B2, the sales figure for January, multiplies by the sales tax, which is A6. To indicate a specific fixed address or fixed address cell, we use the $ prior to the letter and the number in the cell address. $A, $6 in a formula means get the information from cell A6 only. Wherever we place the formula in whatever cell, it will always refer back to this particular cell only, and not to some relative position related to the cell. As an example, let's copy this formula and paste it into these three cells. Now if we select each cell in turn, we can see that the formula, the relative part of the formula, has changed. This one was multiplying B2 by A6. In this one, the formula is C2 times A6. The relative address portion of the formula has been changed to give the same relationship of cells as existed in the original formula. But the fixed part, the fixed address part of the formula, has not changed. Each one of these cells multiplies the appropriate sales figure by the sales tax, which is the same for all of them. If the sales tax changes, we can change it in just A6, and the changes will apply to all the other cells. Next, we'll see how to use pre-programmed formulas called functions, such as sum and average, instead of writing out long formulas. Remember that before, in this example, we had C2 plus C3 plus C4 being added together. D2 and D3 and D4 were added together in this cell. There's a quicker way to do addition, using a function called sum, S-U-M. Select the cell and click in the formula bar to activate it. Type in the formula, equals S-U-M, left parentheses, cell E2, colon, E4, close parentheses. The colon is a way of indicating a range of cells. This means perform the sum of cells E2 through E4. When we hit enter on the keyboard, the value appears in the cell. Sum of E2 through E4. Sum is such a common function. It even has a shortcut button in the toolbar. This little button with the Greek letter sigma is used to put the sum formula into a cell. Let's select the cell first, press the button, and it automatically assumes that we want to add the three numbers directly above the cell. And this has been done by Excel. And the formula has been placed in the formula bar and in the cell. Hit the enter key. Now the value appears in the cell, just as we entered it in from the keyboard before. Now we'll show how to use another important function called average. We've made a new column here called average. We'd like to show the averages of the 3 months in these cells. Let's choose sales first. We could go to the formula bar and click activating the formula bar and then type in the formula, equals, average, and so forth. But there's a quicker way to put the formula or function into the cell. Choose Paste Function from the Formula menu. We get a dialog box for Paste Function. We have a window here that shows a list of all the functions available in Excel, and it's quite a long list. Let's choose average. We click on it, then we click OK. Now we can select this entire range of cells or numbers and type in from the keyboard the actual range that we'd like to use. C3 colon E3. Click enter, And now the average of these three cells is in this cell. One more very useful function called PMT, or payment, allows you to figure out mortgage and loan payments. Let's go to paste function. In the dialog box, we need to scroll down to find the PMT function. We can scroll faster by clicking on this box in the center and dragging it up and down to move to the location in the list until we find the one we're looking for. PMT is the one we want. We click OK. Now the PMT formula is in the formula bar. Several different arguments or values that are necessary for the calculation are indicated. This shows us what order the values need to be typed in. This word is selected, and we can just type in the value for the rate. Go to the keyboard and type in 8%. This will be the rate for our loan payment. Next one is the number of periods, abbreviated NPER. If we double-click, this is a quick way of selecting an entire word. We double-click here to select this word, back to the keyboard to type in the value. For a 30-year mortgage for annual payments first, the number of periods would be 30. For now, let's just put 30. Present value of the loan. We double-click here and type in the loan amount. Let's type in $65,000. We don't use commas in the number. Future value would be 0 when the loan's paid off. The type refers to whether the payments are due at the beginning or at the end of the period. The 0 would indicate the beginning of the period, and 1 would indicate the end. We want to make these both 0, and a quick way to do that is to delete them from the formula list. So the formula will assume those are both equal to 0. Now when we hit enter, a payment is entered into this cell. Remember, we figured this based on annual payments. 8% for 30 years, or 30 periods. To make this a monthly rate, back to the formula bar, place the cursor right before the comma, but after the percent, use the slash key, which means divide, and divide by 12. That gives us a monthly rate. And of course, the number of periods must be multiplied by 12 to make it monthly payments. The asterisk means multiply, and then 12. Now when you hit enter, you get the monthly payment. We can change the present value to any other number to find out what the payments would be for that amount. Let's make it $70,000. We'll hit enter, and the new payment amount is indicated in the cell. Probably a more useful way of using this is to put cell addresses in instead of the values. Then we can change the amounts, the rate, and so forth, and see the results. We've made a little table here: monthly payment, loan amount, and interest rate. Let's change 8% to the address of the interest rate cell, which would be C2. Now we'll change the present value to the cell address B2, which indicates the loan amount. Now all we need to do is put the loan amount and interest rate into the cells, and the payment will automatically be calculated. Here's a shortcut for typing something into a cell. Select the cell first, and then go to the keyboard and just begin typing. The formula bar is automatically activated. Hit enter. Now let's put the interest rate in. Again, just begin typing. 8%. Hit enter. Now we see the monthly payment for that amount and that interest rate. We can change these two and figure any payment amount. Let's change this to $70,000. Again, no commas. Let's change the interest rate. Change it to 9%. Hit enter, and the payment changes in cell A2. To choose a function from a list in version 5 of Excel, we use the function wizard. Excel version 5 contains many wizards, which are small programs that help walk you through or help you through many of the features in Excel. To place a function, an average function, in this cell, we first click on the Function Wizard button. Notice how in Excel version 5, the buttons have little labels that pop up telling you what they are. Click on Function Wizard, and the Function Wizard box opens on the screen. A wizard just steps you through the process of performing a particular function or particular feature of the program. This is step 1 of 2. The function categories here on the left show most recently used, or all functions, and different categories of functions. Functions that you've used recently will be listed in the most recently used list. Here we can choose average, or we could also choose it from the all category by scrolling down to find it and clicking. Or we could also find it in statistical. It fits in different categories. Let's click on average. Notice here at the bottom, we're shown what average expects for its arguments or values. Number 1, number 2, etc. This can be a string of numbers or cell addresses, or it can be a cell range. Now in a wizard, when you're finished with a step, you click Next to move to the next step. Now we have a box where we can enter the number or the cell addresses. Now we could just type these cell addresses in. Notice the cursor is flashing here. We would type the first cell and a colon and the last cell to indicate a cell range. Or we can also enter these cells automatically by pointing to them in the spreadsheet. Let's move the window down, and we'll highlight the cells. We'll click and drag across the cells that we want to average, and then release the mouse button. Notice how the 3 cells are entered as a cell range in the box below. This is D3 through F3. The actual numerical values are shown here on the right. And the result, or the calculation, is shown here at the top. This is what will be in this cell. Now we're finished, we click Finish. And the average of the 3 cells appears in the cell. To use the PMT function, we go back to the function wizard. The function wizard, again, has two steps that help us to enter the PMT function. We may find PMT in more than one category. Then click on Next. Now we can enter the values or cell addresses for rate, number of periods, present value, etc. Notice the cursor flashing here. Let's go up and click on the cell that contains the interest rate. Click here, and it places the address G2 in the cell, in the block. And since we want to figure monthly payments, we want to divide by 12. We type a slash and then 12. Notice the value here on the right. Then below, for number of periods, we click on the block that contains the number of periods, or the number of years in this case. That cell address is placed here. And then we need to multiply, because this is shown in years, and that's how we want it in the spreadsheet. But for monthly payment, we need to know the number of months. So let's multiply the number of years by 12. Type an asterisk. This means multiply. And then we just type in the number 12. This gives us the number of months. Notice on the right we have 360. This is the number of months or periods. Now we just need to enter the cell address for present value or loan amount. Click on the loan amount cell, and that places the cell address here, F2. Now we have all the values we need. These other two values are optional. Future value and type. Now we're ready to click Finish. Now the monthly payment appears in the cell. Next we'll show how to use more than one worksheet at a time on the screen. You may remember, previously we opened a new worksheet without closing an existing one. We can have more than one worksheet open at a time on the screen. To see how many we have open, or to view them, we can go to the Window menu. Pull it down by clicking on it. At the bottom of the menu, we have a list of how many documents or worksheets are currently open. In this case, we have 4. You may have up to 10 worksheets open at a time. To change from one worksheet to another, click on the other worksheet name, and that one comes to the front and is visible on the screen. The other ones are located behind it. If you'd like to be able to see more than one worksheet at a time, go back to the Window menu, choose Arrange. A dialog box opens, allowing us to arrange the windows in different ways. Tiled is currently selected. Tiled means they'll be arranged like tiles on a wall or on a floor. Clicking OK, all 4 windows that are open now are visible in a tile arrangement. This one is the currently active window because it's blue. And as we click in each one, it becomes the active window. And only the active window can be scrolled or have information entered into it. We can also choose a different arrangement of windows on the screen. Let's choose Arrange again. This time, let's choose Horizontal. Click OK. Now, this arranges the 4 worksheets in a horizontal format across the screen, one above the other. To go back to the full-size view of each window, go to any one of the windows, any one of the worksheets. In the upper right-hand corner is a button which is called the Maximize button. Clicking this expands it back to the full size. Now, if we go back to the window menu and select any one of the other worksheets, you can see they've all been expanded back to their full size. Now we'll demonstrate how to link 2 worksheets together. In this case, we'll change something in the July total that will also affect the 6-month total on the other worksheets. Now we have 2 worksheets open, side by side on the screen. One for May, June, and July, the other one for August, September, and October. We'd like to take the quarter totals from each of these worksheets and add them together to get a 6-month total. We do this by linking the 2 worksheets together. Let's highlight this one by clicking on it. Make it the active worksheet. We scroll to the right to see the next column. Let's put a new column title here, 6 months. Click here to enter a new formula into this cell. Going back to the formula bar, we click. This activates the formula bar. Type equals for the formula. Then go to the quarter total on the other worksheet and click. That puts a cell address for that worksheet, including the worksheet title, into the formula. We add a plus sign, then go back to the other worksheet and click on the other quarter total cell. That cell address has been placed in the formula also. A quick way to put cells into a formula is just to click on the cell after the cursor is in the formula bar. Hit enter now on the keyboard. Now the formula has made the calculation, adding the quarter totals from both cells, both worksheets. Let's scroll the right worksheet over so we can see it better. Remember that the 6-month total is the total of the 2 quarters added together. But the quarter totals also are formulas that refer to other cells. So if we change the value in this July cell, let's just add 1 to the title, to the value that was in there. Now the total has been increased by 1 in the 6-month cell. Now we'll see how Excel can use the data in our worksheet to create different types of graphs or charts. We've written out a sample budget for a small company. Once you've typed this information into your computer, you can quickly turn it into a graph like this one. You need to select this part of the worksheet so Excel will know which information to use in the graph. You select it by clicking and dragging the mouse, as we've done before. Then click on File, then New. We've opened a new box in the center of the screen, a dialog box. Click on the word Chart. Then click on the button that says OK, and the graph of the budget appears on the screen. Now it's easy to change to a different style of graph using the buttons at the bottom of the screen. Let's try some of these buttons. Just click on any button and watch the screen. This is still the same information we wrote down in the notebook, but changed into different graphs by clicking on different buttons. And the changes are instantaneous. The chart will also need a legend to tell us what the colors stand for. We go to the Chart menu and choose Add Legend. A legend appears on the right side of the screen. We can click on this legend and drag with the mouse by holding the left mouse button down and release it wherever we'd like to have it on the screen. At the bottom, let's look at some of the buttons that we have available for the different types of charts. On the left, we'll first choose the simple area chart. This is a simple bar chart, a column chart. This is a stacked column chart. Let's skip over to the pie chart. Any of these, we can also move the legend to a new location. Clicking and dragging the mouse will allow us to move this legend. Now here's some of the 3D charts. The area chart, a three-dimensional bar chart. Again, let's move the legend to a new location. And here is a three-dimensional column chart. A three-dimensional stacked column chart as well. Now here's the three-dimensional pie chart. Notice that the pie chart only has one series of the data. It just has rentals for May, June, and July. The percentages are shown here, and the colors represent the months. In other graphs, we're able to display all of the data. All 3 months, May, June, and July. The colors representing the different categories, rental, sales, and service. We can also select different types of charts using the Gallery menu. Click on Gallery. Now we have a list of the different types of charts in this menu. The check mark indicates that this one is the 3D column chart. If we click on this one, now we get a dialog box that gives us other types of 3D column charts. We can select any one of these by clicking on it. The little picture shows us what the graph would look like. When we've chosen the one we like, we click OK. And the chart is converted to that new style of 3D column chart. Notice this one has rental, sales, and service on one side, and May, June, and July on the other side. In the Gallery menu, if we select any one of the types of charts in this dialog box, while we're in the dialog box, we can use the Next and Previous buttons to go back and forth between the different kinds of charts in the Gallery menu. Next, we'll choose the next one that was down the list in the Gallery menu. Previous goes back to the previous one. We're going back up through the menu now to the previous types of charts in the Gallery menu. Now we're back up to the 2D charts, the two-dimensional charts. Let's choose Next to go back down. Every time we click it, we move down to a new type. When we find the one we want, we click on the style and then click OK. Now we have the simple two-dimensional pie chart. Going back to the original column chart that we had, let's see how we can put titles and labels on the chart. In the Chart menu, we'll choose Attach Text. In this dialog box, we can choose a chart title, the Y-axis and X-axis labels, and other labels. Click on OK for chart title. The word title appears here selected, bounded by little boxes. This means it's selected, and we can see it here in the formula bar. It's already selected, so we can just begin typing from the keyboard and it will replace the word title. Then when we hit enter, our new title appears in the chart. Now let's put a label on the Y-axis. This is also known as the value axis. Let's click on value here, and we notice over on the left side, a little box with the Y, and the Y in the formula bar. We just begin typing to replace it since it's already selected in the chart. Let's just type in dollars. And when we hit enter, the word dollars appears on the side. Now we've gone back to a three-dimensional pie chart to show some of the other features of charts. We can select individual areas of the chart just by clicking in the area. Once the chart area is selected, let's choose patterns to show how we can change the colors or patterns in that area. We can choose border and area colors or patterns. Let's look first at the area patterns. When automatic is chosen, the program chooses the colors automatically. Or we can choose custom, and then we can view the different patterns by pressing this button, and the list appears, which we can scroll through to choose different kinds of patterns. The foreground color box also allows us to choose the color for the foreground area. We can also choose a background color. Scrolling through the choices, you can see the different colors that we can choose from. We can also choose black or white. And the sample in the lower right-hand corner shows the color of the current area that's selected. Let's choose a different color of blue. Let's use this lighter color here. The sample shows us the appearance of that area in the chart. Notice there's a black border around it. Let's change the color of the border. Moving to the left in the dialog box, let's choose custom in the border area, and then choose the color. Let's choose white. Going back over to the right now, the sample is blue, light blue, with a white border. Now that we're finished, we click OK, and the changes are made in that section of the chart. One of the things we can do with a pie chart is to create what's called an exploded pie chart, where one or more of the sections are pulled out away from the rest of the chart to separate it. The quickest way to do this is to click and drag with the mouse. You click and drag, holding the left button down, till we get to the place where we like to have it, and then we release it. Now it's moved the piece away from the others. Everything has gotten a little bit smaller, so it fits on the screen still. We can do the same thing with all of the pieces, just by clicking and dragging with the mouse. We can do the same thing in the gallery menu. Choose 3D Pie, and we have several choices. Number 4 here is a style that's already exploded. Let's click OK, and here we have the exploded pie chart created for us. Printing the chart is easy. You click on the little printer icon in the toolbar. This is the printed graph. You can print on a color printer or a black and white printer. We used a small budget in this example, but you can also use a large budget. The steps are exactly the same. To create a chart in version 5, First, highlight the area, and then click on Insert. Then click Chart. Then we have the choice of On This Sheet or As New Sheet. Let's click As New Sheet. Then down at the bottom, we have the Chart Wizard. This is the range of cells we want. Let's click Next. Now this Chart Wizard gives us a choice of the type of chart. Let's choose Column. Click Next. Let's choose this format for the column chart and click Next again. Now we have a sample of the chart on the left, and we're given a choice of choosing the data series in columns or rows, which row to use as the axis labels, the x-axis labels, and which column to use for the legend text. Notice that it's using May, June, and July for the labels, and Red Oak Sales and Service in the legend. This is all correct, so click Next. Here we have a choice whether or not to actually put the legend in, and we can type in a title for the chart. Let's click here and type in Income, and press Enter, and it appears on the left. We can also type in titles for the X and Y axes. Let's type in a title for the Y-axis, dollars. And press Enter, and that appears on the left. This gives you a good idea what the chart will look like when it's finished. Now click Finish, and the chart appears as a new sheet in our workbook. Of course, we can do many of these operations outside of the Chart Wizard. The Chart Wizard is merely a way of stepping through the individual steps. We can add a legend or title later on into our chart. We would do this by clicking on the Insert menu and then clicking on Titles, Data Labels, Legend, etc. We can even add pictures, and we show how to do this in the advanced video. We can also change to different styles of graphs or charts by clicking on the View menu and clicking on Toolbars. Then choosing Chart. This will make the chart toolbar appear. This is the chart toolbar. This is a floating toolbar. We can click and drag to move it around. To see different kinds of charts, we would click on this arrow button. We also have a default chart button and a chart wizard button. We can access the chart wizard from here. We have horizontal grid lines. Notice these are already on in this chart. That's why it looks like it's pushed in. And legend likewise. In this chart toolbar, we can quickly create a chart with all of its elements. Now let's look at the different chart types. Click this button. It has the style shown. And now we have pictures of all the other types of charts. The three-dimensional are on the right. Let's choose a three-dimensional column chart. Then the chart is changed into a three-dimensional version of the same kind of column chart. Let's try a different one. Go back to the Chart toolbar and click on the arrow. Now let's choose the three-dimensional pie. Remember that pie charts only contain one series of the data. May, June, and July are represented by the colors. This is only the information for rentals. Notice this one does not have the grid lines turned on. Let's try one more chart. This is the donut chart. It's a combination of a pie and a column chart. It shows all three series of the data. May, June, and July are represented by the colors. Rentals, sales, and service by the different rings. These can be identified by adding labels. Now we've gone back to the three-dimensional column chart to show how to change the colors in the data series. Click on the data series. It's all highlighted. Then we go to the Format menu. Here we have Selected Data Series. This means the one that's highlighted. Click that. And now we get the Format Data Series box, where we can choose different patterns, just as we did in the other version. Border, area, colors, and patterns. We can choose name and values, and data labels here for that particular data series. Let's change the color. This is the current color here. Let's change it to this red color by clicking there and then clicking OK. This is the sample here in the lower right-hand corner. Now we see that these columns have been changed to this red color. We can also activate this Format menu by just double-clicking on a selected data series, and it automatically opens the Format Data Series box. Next, we'll show how to record a series of keyboard or mouse actions and play these back, just using one or two keys on the keyboard. To do this, we use something called macros. Macros allow us to record all of the things we do on the screen, either with the mouse or the keyboard, and play those things back. For this example, we want to insert a new row above rentals called consulting, so we can put new data in that row. And we'd like to be able to use the macro to insert that same row elsewhere on the worksheet. To record a macro, we click on macro and then click on record. The record macro dialog box opens. It's given us a name and a shortcut key. And we can also choose where to store the macro on the disk. It's already selected here for the name. Let's type in a new name. Let's call it Consult Row. Let's click here in backspace and choose a new letter for the macro for a shortcut key. Let's just give it the letter Q. Now, global macro sheet means that this macro will apply to any worksheet that we open. Let's click OK. If you notice in the lower part of the screen, it says recording. This means Anything we do now will be recorded in the macro. Let's choose this cell. Click Insert in the Edit menu. Click Entire Row, and click OK. This is all being recorded in the macro. Let's type in the new row, Consulting, and hit Enter on the keyboard. Let's widen this column a little bit to fit better. Let's choose Column Width, and in the Column Width dialog box, let's type in 10 and choose OK. This is all still being recorded in the macro. Now we're ready to stop recording. We go back to the macro menu and choose Stop Recorder. Now we're ready to actually use the macro somewhere else in the worksheet. Click in this area to select the cell. Now let's use the keyboard shortcut key. Control Q, hold down Control and press Q. And all of those actions are performed again. When you're planning to record a macro, there's one other thing that you should be aware of. When you highlight individual cells, or when you move to individual cells as part of the macro, those cells will be referred to by absolute reference or absolute cell address. So if you're trying to create a macro in one part of the worksheet and then use the macro somewhere else, you may find that the cell addresses will refer back to the place where you originally recorded the macro. This is absolute reference, and this is the default. So anytime you're going to record a macro where you want to move the highlight to another cell, get information, copy, anything where you're referring to specific cells, you'll need to change it to relative referencing first. And the way to do that is as you're recording the macro, click on Macro, click on Record, go ahead and begin recording your macro. Then, before you do anything, go back to the macro menu and click on Relative Record. This will put it into the relative reference mode. You click on that. Now, anytime you select a cell, or especially when you move from one cell to another in the macro, it will record the command as move down 1, move to the right 1, instead of move to cell D4 or cell C4. That way you can use the macro in any part of the worksheet. Just make sure you have the relative reference turned on. Notice that when you go back to the data or the macro menu, now it says absolute record. This just means if you want to change it back, this is the command to change it to absolute record. So if it says absolute record, that means you're doing a relative record at the time. If it says relative record, that means you're in the absolute record mode. It's a little backwards from what you might think. This is a command that makes you change it to the other mode. Version 5 handles this a little differently, and we'll show that in a second. Recording a macro in version 5 of Excel is very similar, but there are slight differences. Notice that there is no macro menu. Instead, the macro commands are found in the Tools menu. Click on Tools, then click on Record Macro to actually record a macro. Click Record Macro, and a side menu opens up to the side. And then you can choose this to actually record the macro. Now it's very similar. You get the name, macro name, and you even get a description already put in. It will have the name of the user and the date, and you can change this information. You can give it a new name. We'll call it whatever you'd like. You can also use options to assign the macro to a menu item. It will actually place the macro with the name that you give it on the Tools menu, and you can make it a part of your Tools menu if it's something you want to use in that way. Or you can also give it a shortcut key. You can do either one or both of these. You click on the shortcut key, for instance, then you can type a different letter in here, and if the letter happens to include it, you can also press Alt or Shift as you type the letter, and it will say that here. The default is the Control plus the letter. You can choose where you want to store the macro, and you can also choose the language. Version 5 uses the Visual Basic language to record macros. And especially if you're familiar with BASIC, it gives you the opportunity to go in and you can actually you can edit the macro. You can write your own macros if you're familiar with the BASIC programming language. If you want it to be more similar to the macros in Excel 4, you can use that language as well. You click on this button. Then once you're done setting the shortcut key and changing the name or description as necessary, click OK. And then the macro recording process actually begins. Notice in the lower left-hand corner, it says recording. And notice this module that's been added. This is a sheet that's been added to your workbook. This is where the actual macro is stored. And if you click to this, you'll see the listing of the macro commands. Then up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a little floating toolbar, which is the stop recording button. And when you want to stop recording, you just click on this button to stop the macro. And we do the macro in a similar way. Let's just insert a row, for instance, above this one. We'll go up. Remember that insert has its own menu in this version. Insert row. And then we'll type in the information as we did before. And press enter. Now we can stop recording the macro. Now if we want to run the macro again, remember that the keyboard command was Control plus E. Let's click here, and we'll perform the macro by pressing Control plus E. You could also go back to the Tools menu and click on Macro, and then you'll get a list of all the macros that you currently have. And you can just click it here to select this macro, and then you'll be able to choose Run. Or you'll be able to also choose Edit if you want to go back and change the macro. Let's cancel this, and we'll run it just by using the keyboard command, Control plus E. Hold down Control and press E. And notice it has put the row in there. But also notice that instead of highlighting this cell after it was finished, it went back up and highlighted this cell. That's because individual cells are referred to by absolute references instead of relative references. When we hit enter after typing this in, it went down to this cell and it recorded in the macro cell B5. So that when it performed the macro down here, it went back up to cell B5. This is because it's recording in absolute reference mode. It refers to cells by their actual cell address. If you want to use relative references, if you want to be able to move from cell to cell in your macro, and then repeat that action somewhere else in the worksheet, you'll have to use relative referencing. And to turn that on, you have to turn that on after you start your macro. So you start recording a macro, and if you don't have any macros currently in your sheet, you'll notice that this will be gray. Use relative references. Right now, it's on, and all you have to do is click on this, and then any macro you record from then on will use relative references to cell addresses rather than absolute references. The first time you add a macro to your worksheet, this will be gray. You won't see it until you actually start recording the macro. And you'll have to start recording, start a new macro, click OK. Then you'll have to go back and click on Record Macro and then click on Use Relative References. Now, when you go back and look at this, you'll see that now there's a check mark. This means the Relative References mode is on, and any macro that you record now will use Relative References. Now, if we record the same macro again, after hitting Enter, when we typed in consulting, it would record move one cell down rather than move to cell B5, so that when you perform the macro, you'll end up with this cell highlighted. Next, we'll show how to sort data in our worksheet. For example, we have this list of names. We'll sort it alphabetically. This is a list of employees' names, the departments, salary, years of service, etc. We want to sort these into alphabetical order. First, we select the block of cells to perform the sort in. Go to the Data menu and choose Sort. In the Sort dialog box, we can choose sorting by rows or by columns. Sorting by rows means that everything in one row will be considered as belonging together. This is what we want to do. We'll leave it at rows. The first key is the first item or column that it will use to determine the sort. We're sorting by last name, so this first column is what we want to use to sort by. Here we have a case where two people have the same last name, so we want to also sort by first name. Let's put a second key in to sort by first name. Then we'll choose this column by just clicking in it. The address appears in the second key window. The names will be sorted by last name and first name. We could also use a third key if we wanted to. Let's click OK now. And the data now has been sorted by last name and then by first name. Notice the last names here are the same, and then the two first names sorted in alphabetical order. And all the other information is still with the original row that it was in. Next, we'll see how to take information in the worksheet and use it to create a database. Having information in a database can make it a lot easier to change or find or delete information. In this case, we have the same list of employees and their departments and so forth. We'd like to make a database out of this information. We click and drag to select the information and the headings, the titles at the top. In the Data menu, we choose Set Database. Now this group of cells has become a database. Of course, a database can be as large as you want. It can be as large as the entire worksheet if necessary. And you can store, of course, you can store any type of data in a database. One of the advantages of having information in a database is that we can use special database tools to find information, to extract information, and so forth. In this case, we'd like to get a list of all of the employees, their last names, and their salaries of all the employees who make more than $2,000. This is just an example. And if we had a large database, this would be a very handy feature to have. Let's copy the last name block and then paste it here. We'll copy the salary cell and paste it here. We select and then choose Paste. Now, we'll use this little area as what's called a criteria range to find the information. Below these titles, we'll type in the information that the computer will use to decide who to find in the list. We'd like a list of the names of people who make a certain amount of salary. People that satisfy the criteria in these blocks. Let's type in, below salary, let's type greater than 2,000 and hit enter. Now we select this entire little block of cells and we identify this as a criteria range for the search. Click on Data and click Set Criteria. This block now has been chosen as a criteria range for the search. Going back to the Data menu, let's choose Find. This will find all of the last names that satisfy the criteria listed. And the program has selected the first one. Down at the bottom of the page, we'll see the instruction, use arrow keys to view records. By using the arrow keys, we can move down and only the records that satisfy the criteria will be selected. Notice it skipped one. He had an income of $2,000 exactly. And we asked for greater than 2,000. So that one was skipped. And then it won't go any farther than this because the last one does not satisfy the criteria. Use the arrow key to move back up again. And we could go through the entire list finding those names that satisfy the criteria. Another option we can use to find information, once we have the database set, to go to the Data menu and choose Form. The program has created a form. This form looks somewhat like a dialog box. It has all the fields in our database. If we had more, there'd be room for them here. And we'd use the scroll bar now to go through the database, and each record appears in its appropriate box. We can also delete records using this form. We can change names or other information. We can use this to find things. Using the criteria, let's type in the salary, we'll do the same search we did before. Let's type in the salary box, greater than 2,000. And we click Find Previous or Find Next to move through the list. Find Next moves to the next person that satisfies the criteria. We can click it again to move down through the list. Now we've reached the bottom, we can move back up through the list. The form is a very easy way to enter information into the database as well. Let's move up to this line that we left blank. We can just type in all of these cells. Let's type in the last name and the first name. And we could fill in all of the other information as well. When you click enter, when you hit enter on the keyboard, the new employee's name is entered on line 2. Now we can also extract information from a database, which is like finding, except we want to make a copy of the data and place it somewhere else in the worksheet or on another worksheet. Let's go back to our criteria range and click Data and Set Criteria to identify that as the criteria range. We have this other little block of cells now. This is going to be our extract range. The actual list of extracted information would be placed here. Choose Set Extract from the Data menu, and now we choose Extract from the Data menu. This will actually perform the extract operation. The Extract dialog box opens. We can choose Unique Records Only if we'd like, if we think there might be some duplicated information. Or let's just choose OK. And now there's a list of the information that has been extracted from the database, information that satisfies the criteria that we identified. You may also use wildcards when you're searching for or extracting data. For example, we may want to search for all employees whose names begin with the letter H. If we follow H by an asterisk, the asterisk is a wildcard that stands for any other letters. Choosing this area as the criteria range now, set criteria again. Then when we do the extraction, the computer has found all of the names beginning with H that satisfy the criteria. In Excel version 5, click on any cell in the data table. Then, in the data menu, click on Sort. And you're given a Sort dialog box. And it automatically knows the names of your columns. And you can choose which one you want to sort by. Notice how it selected the data automatically, and it figured out that these were the headings, and you can choose which one you want to sort by. Click on this list, and let's choose last name. You can also sort by additional rows. Let's choose then by first name. Ascending order, and let's click OK. And it automatically keeps the rows together and sorts the information. Notice how the names, the last names were sorted first and then the first names. Then to search for information, to find or extract information, again we highlight any cell in our table, then go to the data menu and click filter, and then choose auto filter. This places little drop down list arrows by the headings of our data. If we click on these arrows, we get a list of all of the data in that particular column. And if you had a lot of data, all of it would be listed here, and you would scroll through it using these arrows. These are all similar. These are all contained here. There's no arrows, no scroll arrows, because it's all contained in one little box. If we wanted to show everyone who makes $2,000, click on 2,000, and it filters the list so that all we see is the person who makes 2,000. If there were more than one person who makes that amount, they would be listed. Notice it's blue. This means that we're currently filtering, or we're looking at only part of the list. Click this, scroll back up, and go back to all to see all of them again. We can also do a custom filter. Click on Custom, and in this area, we want to show the rows where the salary is greater than, and then type in here 2,000. We want to show the rows where salary is greater than 2,000. Notice we can also choose between less than or greater than equal to, or not equal to, etc. Then, over on the right, click OK. And now we have the list filtered to show only those that are greater than 2,000. Notice the one that was exactly 2,000 is not shown here. Over on the left, you can see that we're looking at rows 2, 3, 5, and 6. This is a way to find the data we're looking for. Now, to extract the data, all we have to do is copy and paste. Since all we're looking at here is those who make more than $2,000, we can simply highlight these and then choose copy and then click here and choose paste. And just that information is pasted into a new area in the worksheet. It's very quick with autofilter to find and to extract data from our database.
The video you just watched contains intermediate features. But you and your coworkers can gain powerful computer skills from our advanced video package. For only $149.50, you'll get advanced videos on Windows, Microsoft Word for Windows, Excel, WordPerfect, Lotus, and DOS. In 2 hours or less per video, you can learn dozens of powerful time-saving skills. Sometimes a single feature can save hundreds of hours of labor. And if you or someone you know needs a solid foundation in the basics of using computer software, we have the answer. For only $119.95, you'll get beginning videos on Windows, Microsoft Word for Windows, Excel, WordPerfect, Lotus, and DOS. That's $119.95 for beginning videos on Windows, Microsoft Word, Excel, WordPerfect, Lotus, and DOS. For those who need a solid foundation in the basics of using computer software. We ship all orders the day we receive them. You'll get your tapes in 7 to 10 working days. For another $8, we'll rush your order for delivery in 3 working days. To order the advanced package, all 6 videos for just $149.50, just call this number, 1-800-999-3279. Order now. To order the beginning package, all 6 videos for just $119.95, just call this number,